Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Don't really have too much to say here at the beginning. I do want to acknowledge that after last week telling people that the forums would likely cease to exist in the near future, I did receive some offers to help with designing a new website, one for my channel, my YouTube, my Twitch, basically something that's specifically for me as opposed to the Dream Network forums. The only reason I haven't gotten back to those people is I've been busy with Blue Mage stuff. So if you're watching this and you are someone who reached out to me, just know that I saw it and I'm planning on answering at least one or two of you. Gonna just, look around, see what I can do. But anyway, it looks like we will probably find a way to have websites and forums for these Q&As at the very least in the near future. Other than that, I just want to thank the sponsors and get going onto the questions. Why not waste no more time? So for those of you who have never watched before, we do have supporters over on Patreon who have been sponsoring the channel through hashtag demonetized, and we shout them out every week. We do have a couple of new people on this list. I've kind of come up with names for those people based on kind of the information I have from their pledges. But if they don't want to be part of the list, just send me a message and I'll take you off immediately. Some people don't want the shout out. I totally respect that. We have our patrons of light first. We have Khuja Cross on Jenova and Kurenai Oni. You guys see them every week, and every week they provide images for you all. On the YouTube side of things, you'll see it. Those of you watching live on Twitch are going to be like, what images is he talking about? But thank you to them. They always provide some solid images for us to look at, while I thank them for being massive supporters of the channel. And I thank you, as I do every week. Thanks. We also have our standard sponsors. Well, we have three different tiers, but we're going to start with standard. Standard sponsors are Wapatalia, Alma Elma, Dark Lumina from Jenova, Marianne, Remil Gaming, Sabo Empire, Mizra, Red Wings of the Baron FC from Zalera, Cidus Oreo on Shiva, Syd Hellwind of Gilgamesh, Afro Ninja from Malboro, Cheesecake from Leviathan, That Lame Weeb, Ashen, Emiya of Cerberus, Fafarian, Rendil, Stevie-Rex, and Neon. We then have our elite sponsors. We have Nyark Vizsla. Wait, no, that doesn't sound right. Didn't he change things over? No, he uses a different name now. Why is it not updated? I thought I fixed that last week. Maybe this is... No, you know what? This is the fixed name. Yeah, I'm thinking of the old name, mixing it up with the new one. This is the correct name. Nyark Vizsla, Fist of Ralgar, Krista Uzuki, Crazed Demeter from Midgard, Raijin Ventinus from Cactar, Carol, Ray, Senchi, Shadowlink from Tonberry, Dom, Sukawake from Jenova, Limilla Nelhah of Midgard Summer, Sar and the Fennel family, Janhyua Yotsuyu, Kifka and the Great Eagles on Exodus, Katayoshi from Khuja, Skia Symphonia from Ragnarok, Rylanator Westaus The Purple Warrior, Yadrik Red Seal on Exodus, Lexxie Valentine, Mantaru the Rivivus FC from Zodiark, Sarah Cream and Tribes from Jenova, Rynoet Chikara, Goisha Valfar of Siren, Phoenix Down FC on Goblin, and Saren from Zodiark. Finally, we have our premium sponsors. We have Vapatiama of Diablos. We have Morgan, Zeravire of Coral, Alchemy, Shinka, Casual Heroes FC on Midgard Armor, Tatachi Taka on Hyperion, Kanozuki from Jenova, Starla on Coral, Sathal, Sarah Frost from Behemoth, Holy Tabasco, Kraz015, Serenity FC on Ultras, Cat Kazuma, Ignis Fairgun from Excalibur, Vlestra Fanfret, Not Quarters from Excalibur, Krovus Moonscar, Puppet Mikey, 9 Kiyosami, Rudy Rudiger, Kill Hackman, Rawl Jr., and Killtastic Jones. Woo! Always got to throw that in there. And I like to try to wrap them out as fast as possible. But thank you to all of our Patreon sponsors for supporting the channel. On that note, though, let's go right into the Q&A, because we got like 10 questions, and I want to make time for Twitch chat questions as well. So let's get started. All right, question number 1. Hello, Mr. Happy. I hope you're doing well in this Monday. I'll tell you tomorrow, or I'll tell you next week about how my Monday was last week, because right now it's not... Never mind. Anyway, hope you're having a good one, too. My question is, since they are removing TP and now we only use MP, how do you feel it will affect Dark Knights, casters, and other jobs that require MP? Well, it's not going to have any effect on jobs that require only MP. It's the question of how it affects jobs that had TP and MP both as active resources. Even Red Mage uses TP for its melee weapon skills, if I'm not mistaken. So that's another thing to consider right there. Honestly, I assume that either A, it'll all be consolidated into MP, meaning anyone who spends TP now will be spending MP later. And those that used both may just have their costs adjusted. I think it's more likely that Dark Knight, for example, maybe gets a little bit more interaction with their gauge. And there is the possibility that weapon skills just don't cost anything anymore, and it becomes entirely about managing your job gauge and nothing else, unless, of course, you're like Dark Knight and use MP also, and not about managing your TP. Which, if they're going to do that, I think it's okay to remove TP costs from skills, or like not make them cost MP, if there's some sort of required interaction. I don't like the idea of not having to pay attention any more than I did before and to literally only be focused on my rotation. Granted, TP this expansion has kind of also become a lot of a non-factor. Unless you're spamming AoEs or you just died, it doesn't really hold a lot of merit anymore. You don't have to manage it like you did in previous expansions. So there's really room for any of those. I suppose any of them will work, but I hope that there's something interesting to manage that will replace TP. Something more interesting to manage TP. Hopefully the job gauges that we have that kind of don't really do a whole lot, or even the ones that maybe do, can be reworked to be a little bit more involved in the actual jobs rotation instead of maybe just storing up points for like one skill. Question number 2. Hey Haps. Hey. I was having a discussion with a friend of mine, and I'd like to hear your input on this one. Alrighty then. With the implementation of more jobs throughout the lifespan of 14, job balance comes into concern. My job is of the mindset that the jobs should all maintain balance. The devs shouldn't add more jobs if it takes away from said balance. My mindset, however, is that simply the idea of balance is already out of the question, as we have the number of jobs that do not equal the number of party slots we have available. And that since Final Fantasy series as a whole is a very large catalog of jobs, that they should add a few more if they can at least be operable in the Trinity paradigm. Not to say that they can add a tank and it'd be garbage when you have 15 jobs and 8 party slots. Yeah, I'm of the opinion that really it's about just fulfilling class fantasy. I think that of all the MMOs I've played, 14 is the most balanced, and people like to make differences over very minute things in Final Fantasy 14. You could have, like, let's say you have one DPS that does 7,000 on average, and you have another DPS that fits in the same role, and it kind of maxes out at like 67, 6,800. In our community, that gets blown up to, it's the fucking worst shit. How could you do this, Square Enix? This is fucking trash. Why would anyone play this? And it's like, bro, it's like barely different. Like, fucking relax, okay? Like, that's how our community kind of treats it. And I think it's more important to fulfill class fantasy, because Final Fantasy XIV already does a really good job of balancing the jobs we have. We may not always agree with the spot they're in, but they're never a complete hindrance, nor are they ever really just that bad that you can't bring them into a raid. It's never been the case, ever. There were times where certain debuffs actually meant more than the DPS you brought. And that was worse for writing jobs out of meta, like Paladin not being able to use half their cooldowns on endgame raids, or Monks and Dark Knights fighting to reduce intelligence down, so Monks not being as desired. That to me was more problematic than the small, minute DPS differences we have now. And we still see that with piercing down as of this moment, Dragoon being the only source of piercing down. Basically, you know, bards and machinists saying, well, now you have to bring a Dragoon, and that only leaves 2 DPS slots left. I suspect they'll probably tackle that in the expansion. They've already mentioned coming up with a plan for that. But they should just release as many jobs as they want. I mean, yes, job balance becomes tougher and tougher with the more that you add, but who cares? You're, like you said, you're already so many slots over what actually fits in a raid. Who cares how many more you add after that? Just fucking enjoy the game. That's it. Just enjoy the game. And enjoy whatever class fantasy it is that they bring to you. And if it's yours, great. Enjoy it. That's it. Done. I agree with you, in other words. Question number 3. Greetings, Mr. Happy. Greetings. I have a question about Triple Triad and Gold Saucer Gates. I think I'm going to be useless here. Let's give it a shot. Why don't they expand the rare cards you can use with a full set of 5? You could have any hand you wanted in Final Fantasy VIII. It seems that they are restricting these to high-level cards, yet I can only bring a single 4 or 5 star into my hand and have to fill out the rest with 3 and below. Also, I really love the new Air Force One gate. It's a ton of fun. What's your least favorite gate that they haven't removed? Skin change. I get why they removed the other one first, because they probably don't want to add Viera onto the stage for the emote one, but I hate skin change, and I know that one's going to go out the door as soon as they release another gate. As for the Triple Triad, I guess there's some sort of tournament integrity. I don't know. I don't think there's a good enough reason at this point. There's so many cards. Just let people do whatever the hell they want. It's a mini game on the side. It doesn't need to have strict rules that you have to abide by. So I'm on your side. I don't really care for any. If they provided me a reason, I probably still wouldn't agree with it all the same. So just yeah, I mean, let us do it. At least make it so it's only 1 5-star and 4-star or below is unlimited. Because why would you ever take a 4-star unless it was like to try and match, like do a same or a plus rule or something? It's like, I don't know. They should just let you go nuts. It's a fucking card game, you know? I'm feeling real passionate this episode with the F word. Apologies in advance. I feel like more are coming. Anyway, question number 4. Hey, Haps. Hope you're having an amazing week and enjoying bluing around. Man, That sounds dirty when I say it out loud. Anyway, my question is regarding dots and what impact their damage. Oh, I feel like we just had this exact question last week. Buffs, skill speed, spell speed, vulnerabilities, did some research. Yeah, I feel like this is a repeat of kind of last week's question, but let's see. Bonus question is regarding dots and what impact. Everything impacts their damage. Any sort of buffs or debuffs on the enemy all impact dots. So, I guess everything. Last week was more about snapshotting as part of the question. This week is just what? Anything that says it increases your damage increases dots damage. Pretty much. That's a simple answer. A bonus question is O12 Savage MNF phase when they switched Firewall, sometimes I find myself having the opportunity to refresh my dots on one of them before switching to the other. If I do so, will my dots still take... So you know what? I actually don't think it does, even if it's applied. But you know what? Actually, you know what? It might. I'm sure a summoner would have a better idea, and it's been a while since I've done MNF. I always used to try and refresh my dot before going over to the other one. Just out of belief that it would work as long as it was applied, but I think they just go immune to your damage overall. So it probably just ticks. It might just tick for nothing. I'd have to look at ACT logs to know for certain, which I never bothered with them. So that's actually a good question. I'm sure there's a summoner or somebody who double dots like a bard or something in the comment section who could be like, it does or it doesn't. So I would look in the comment section of this video. I'm sure someone will give you a more definitive answer, because as a monk, demolish is the only thing I really worry about there. So I never really pay enough attention to it. I just swap targets as soon as I see it. Also, anyway, looking forward to the videos on blue. Good, because I'm working on them after this is done. So look forward to it. Question number 5. No hello. I guess you've got 29 posts. I can forgive it. I'm not a big fan of duty actions in raids. To me, they are cumbersome to use and slow the tempo of the fight. I mean, I agree with you. Maybe if you can put the duty action in your quick slots, it might make it easier to use with controller. As a matter of fact, I don't even know how to use it with my controller. I just grab my mouse to act. Isn't it like L3 plus R3 or something? There is a button combination to use your duty actions from the thing. You might have to set it in the key bindings, but I feel like there's a default button combination that lets you use a duty action. And a part of me wants to say it's like L3 plus R3 at the same time or something. But I don't know. RS plus stick. R2 plus stick. Which L2, R3. It's a combination of something. Yeah, I think, yeah. So it's like L2 plus R3 or R2 plus L3. It's one of those two, but there is a way to press them without using your mouse. So that does exist. I will say that you can also rebind it. So I would just see which one of the two it is. How does the community as a whole feel about them? I don't know. It seems 50-50. Sometimes people find it adds an interesting element to the fight. Sometimes people think it's whatever. I don't care. And if you're in my boat, you're like, it's interesting. It's seldom interesting, and most of the time, it doesn't really feel like it's adding much to the fight. It's just, I basically have an extra button I only have to press during certain fights. It's kind of weird to me. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of just, I could do without them, but we have them, so whatever. You know, I'll just make use of them when they make me. And, you know, if they got rid of them, it would be no skin off my back. Question number 6. Hi. Hey. I'm back. And Blue Mage too, with the great question roulette. The Blue Mage is here, the Blue Mage Encore, and limited jobs. See, I don't know which one to pick, because I was like, oh, if he just gives me one Blue Mage option, I'll take it. But there's 3 Blue Mage options. I'm going to take Blue Mage Encore. What changes, fixes to the Blue Mage do you anticipate the most? If you ask me, remove the RNG from learning spells to see them get hit. Should be a learned process now. No, I think you need to keep the RNG in there for learning them. If it was 100%, dude, Blue Mage would just... I don't know. It just doesn't right. I don't think you need to make it 100% learn rate. I think if you do it with a full party of Blue Mages, you should do 100% learn rate. Maybe on certain things, but only for like the really challenging things, like a full Blue Mage Extreme Primal. You know, I would be okay if it was a synced full party of Blue Mages, and yeah, I would be okay if you learned it 100% of the time like that. I think that would do good to encourage people to try and do stuff as all Blue Mage, and I think there's a lot of fun in doing that, and I would definitely like them to try to encourage that more by increasing the learning rate by having a full group of Blue Mages. As for changes, fixes, I don't really have a big list on this. I just want more of it. I think there are certain things that could use adjustments, like I think they could do more achievements for the Carnival. I think that the Carnival might as well just give max level... Like, I understand why it only gives Poetics as opposed to, like, Genesis. But, like, who cares, man, at this point? So many things give tomes. I don't care if it's level 50 content. Just have it give Genesis tomes while we're at it. For the weekly challenges, especially, like, it might as well just have it. There's a bunch of mistakes in the tooltips. For example, there's an enemy that uses ice spikes, and that means if you use a physical spell, you'll take damage, like as a counterattack. And one of the spells is magic. It says magic. It's not a physical spell at all, but you use it and it procs ice spikes. So clearly it's physical damage, and it's just not labeled correctly. And then there's Final Sting. It has a higher potency than self-destruct, but it's physical and it's piercing damage, so it doesn't benefit from Peculiar Light. So it's actually weaker than self-destruct when you factor in the 30% damage that you're going to get from Peculiar Light as well. Like, there's things like that need fixing for me. And then it's more spells, like Transfusion's kind of weird. That's a really weird one. Yeah, and Toad Oil as well. Well, I was factoring that into the 1200 potency, because you don't want to do self-destruct without Toad Oil. That's bad if you don't do self-destruct with Toad Oil on. So yeah, it's things like that, and just more of it, because there's so many good ideas. And when I do my Blue Mage review video sometime this week, I'm going to talk about it, but it's there's so many good ideas that just need to be either A, we get more of them on Blue Mage, or B, they need to be incorporated into the rest of the game. And I'm not talking about Blue Mage being max level. I'm talking about things like the achievements. We finally got interesting achievements in Final Fantasy XIV, and they're tied to Blue Mage. And that's good, but I want interesting achievements everywhere. And I think there are ways they can do it, and I think they know there are ways they can do it, and I hope that one aspect of Blue Mage is something that we see in the rest of the game as well. Question number 7. Hello, Happy. Hello. Happy New Year and birthday. Little late on that one. So I don't know if you heard this idea before. I was thinking about your obvious favorite sport and the limited job system. When do you think we are getting a blitzball job? I see the JKs, but I hate you. P.S. Please don't be mad about asking what do you think or daring to mention blitzball. I'm more upset that there's not a real question here, and I just read this just to get upset. That's what I'm upset about right now, is that you only asked this so that you could make me upset. I hate you. I hate you. Question number 8 on that note. Hey, Haps, hope you're enjoying your week. And again, being a meme mage. I know I am. Hey, I'm not memeing at all. I'm busy taking 32 minutes to solo turn 2. You damn right. Started playing in Heavensward and began raiding in late 4.1, early 4.2 as a tank with a bit of dabbling, I almost said dabbing, in melee, which brings me to my question. How do you see them going forward between fight design and melee uptime, aka positionals? This last year has been quite bad for melee, with some forcing coordinated movement like Pantocrator and Hello World face forcing some missed positionals and downtime. Bonus question, do you think tanks and melee are too close in design, and if so, there should be differences to change the future? No, I don't think melees and tanks are... I think that the only reason it kind of feels that way is because tanks focus a lot on their damage too. But the way tanks achieve their damage is, I'd say they're under much more stress, because if they make a mistake, they die instantly. Melee, if you make a mistake on your DPS rotation, yeah, you lose some DPS, but odds are it's not killing you. With them, they focus on their DPS too much, miss a cooldown, don't time something right. They end up either more often than not losing their life and not just a few hundred points of DPS. So I think that kind of gives them a pretty distinct... Also, they fight from the front. Pretty distinct difference right there. As for melees, positionals, I think the True North change was one of the biggest things we needed. Those mechanics that force us to lose positionals, some fights they're more common than others, but that's part of the skill of a melee, is taking mechanics, taking the design and trying to maximize uptime whenever you can, making proper use of stuff like True North, making risky last second moves in order to go do a specific mechanic. I mean, that's part of the mastery of the job, knowing when you can stand at max melee range and still get positionals, even when it looks like you need to go further out in order to properly dodge something. It's just, I love that degree of mastery that there is with melee, and it's one of the most satisfying parts. It used to be, a part of it used to be managing TP, but that's, as we said earlier, gotten a lot less interesting over the years. So I don't really think there's too much to change. I just hope they don't mess with positionals. I hope they respect that often there are mechanics that cause you to miss positionals, and that they give True North maybe a little more love in, 15 seconds with a 90-second cooldown now, as opposed to a 2.5-minute cooldown. I think it could be brought down to 60 seconds reasonably, and that it would basically just speak the skilled and attentive melees will use it properly every time. They'll use it when it means the most damage to them, and the ones who don't, they lose that damage, and I think that's perfectly fine from a design perspective. Also, there is a bonus question here, I guess. Do you think tanks and melee are... Oh, no, I answered that. Okay. No, we're good. We're good. That's my answer. Question number 9. Ayo, Haps. Ayo. Hope you have a great day and week ahead. I want to give you some bonus, but I can't think of one. It's not your first question. You don't need to give me a bonus anyway. On to the question. Blue's here, and it's safe to assume overall people who excited for the job even after the limited job thingy is satisfied for the job, or at least enjoy it for what it is. Many of them are still hoping Blue will be a full-fledged job like the others so they can main it in raid. So my question is, how would you redesign Blue Mage to fit it as a full job without sacrificing much of its current mechanic? My personal idea is to let them get the GCD rotation skill spell based from job quest and the OGCD skill spell be able to acquired by mobs, much like it is now. But they give the full list of what the spell would be like in the primal spell. So here's the problem. It's already designed as a limited job. So you're asking me to go back and start from scratch, because you can't just change, you kind of can't just change the rules now. You basically have to just give them all their spells a different way. And that would take, actually take a lot of work. It'd be actually pretty rough. I'm in the boat where I would have been okay with either implementation. I personally get more playtime out of Blue Mage with its current design for a few reasons. One of which is that I actually enjoy it, and I plan on trying to do 8-man raids with it. I plan on doing some 24-mans with it occasionally. So I actually will probably use it more like this than if I had just leveled it to 70 or 80, whatever, and just put it to the side because I don't main casters. It's just how it is. So it's a bit of a selfish reason, but it's one of my reasons for kind of being okay with the current design. I also think I would have loved to have seen their interpretation with a full design, and I've often considered how Blue Mage would work. I always imagined Blue Mage being a tank, one of the things. Mighty Guard pretty much fits exactly what I would have done with that, and they have, you know, their enmity spells. I always imagine that a spellcaster would probably not combo skills together, so this whole like spamming one ability for DPS or spamming one ability for tank is kind of how I anticipated it would be, with a managing of a lot of debuffs. It kind of already does all the things that match what I would do from my design perspective, but it's specifically designed with the Masked Carnival in mind. It's not designed with the rest of the game in mind. There are times where you do absolutely ridiculous things, and there are times where you feel like complete deadweight. I think maybe fixing the point of which you feel like complete deadweight might be something they want to do, because if it's never going to be max level, it should, I feel, at least be able to literally roll over old shit. I feel like that would bring a lot more desire for people to kind of experiment with it a little bit more, and I think we'll get a lot more of that as we get more spells as well. But I mean, honestly, it kind of already does what my job fantasy for it would have been, on top of the learning spells. I think they do that. There's just there's a lot of redundancies in the spells because of the carnival itself, and that can be a little bit off-putting when you're trying to do stuff like normal overworld content, but is really satisfying when you use them properly inside the carnival itself. I think the carnival itself could use a lot more attention. Again, I said it earlier, there's some great ideas in there that definitely, when more pieces of the carnival come out, I can't wait to see what they do. And I want to see certain aspects of the carnival, like the achievements, put in the rest of the game. But unfortunately, my answer for you is relatively plain, because I think they did everything. They just made it limited instead of unlimited. So I don't know what else to really add to it. Sorry it took a long time to read, and many thanks for your contents over the past few years. Thank you for watching them, and thank you for your question. Let's go on to the last one, shall we? And question number 10. Hello, Mr. Happy. I've been watching you for a little while now, but I feel like it would be a good time to properly ask a question, especially in the midst of the blue frenzy, so to speak. As a first-time bonus, here's a guaranteed chance of Blitzball coming to the Gold Saucer eventually, because we all know you love that so much. You're banned. Anyway, for the sake of brevity, in my experience, it feels that blue should not be limited in the least bit. I like how it segued from question 9 to 10. It worked really, really well. Outside of certain spells, Doom, Missile, White Wind, Tailscrew, the job does not feel like it is able to do anything that is extraordinary as to earn its classification. Even when including spells like Doom and Missile, the low chance of success and immunities that mobs have make it feel useless. This feels directly conflicted with the class as they touted it, with the class built for solo play. So just to be clear, when they say it was built for solo play, they are specifically talking about the Masked Carnival. They're not talking about your average overworld monsters. That is an important distinction to make between those statements. They weren't just talking about going out into the world and soloing every piece of content that exists. They were specifically mentioning the Masked Carnival. This feels incredibly contradictory, as it seems the majority of blue playtime is spent in a party instead of solo. Yeah, no, ever since they unveiled Blue Mage, they've been encouraging you grouping up with other players to learn spells. And in the trailer, they made sure to show a few 4 Blue Mage parties doing certain dungeons. So I don't feel like there was ever that much confusion there, but I feel like as soon as they threw the word solo out, it threw all those other statements about, grouping up to learn spells, or maybe having level 70s help you and then you help them. Like, they had mentioned all the things that we're kind of doing now when they initially unveiled the job, but people kind of focused in on solo play. When it ultimately is still an MMO, and they definitely still want you to share your experience with other players. It's not meant to be an alternative so you can be a loner, kind of, I suppose. As for my question, do you feel that Blue truly has any qualities that should cause it to remain limited, and why? I personally feel like it doesn't, and it does not have enough broken spells to make up for this limitation. This is outside other flaws. I think really the overall power level doesn't warrant the limited aspect. You could argue that because it's weaker than everything else in overworld content, because of its focus on its combos specifically for the carnival, that this iteration actually should be limited because it would be a hindrance in standard content. Obviously, there's ways to fix that, in terms of potencies or new spells that you could learn and stuff like that. It also has a lot of power behind having a tank stance and having this massive AoE heal that is really strong. So it's a bit questionable because, again, you've already mentioned it does have some really strong spells, and especially in dungeons, Doom, Missile, and Tailscrew aren't that rare to work in dungeons, and their AoE in dungeons and how effective their CC is on the trash mobs is insane. I loved doing 4 Blue Mage dungeons because all of their combos work on most of the mobs. You can have one guy doing Ram's Voice and Dragon's Voice combos on them. You could have another guy petrifying them and drill cannoning them. You could have another guy doing Aqua Breath followed by Hive. Like, you could have all those combos working, and it felt really good to do those 4 Blue Mage dungeons. Specifically for the trash mobs. But as for do I feel like it has qualities that make it seem like it needs to remain limited? No, I don't. I think it's ultimately the design of how you obtain the spells that kind of warrants it being limited. Yes, there are Final Fantasy XIV solutions to it, but I don't think I'd be having this much fun with Blue Mage if it was designed traditionally. And that's, again, I mentioned earlier that really it's for selfish reasons why I kind of am okay with the current iteration, as much as I would love to see what they do with the traditional 14 design. So I'm a bit conflicted. I would if they said one day, you know what, people have asked enough, it's no longer going to be limited, I wouldn't be like, that's stupid. I'd be like, okay, great, because I got to have all that fun with it, and now people who wanted it to be full, it can be. I don't think they'll ever do that, though. I think the idea is to have this limited content be expanded upon, and then it's more content. I'm someone who actually loves doing ambiguous content in 14. I did all 80 of the Realm Reborn sightseeing logs right when they came out, and I've done the majority of the rest of them as well. I think there's a couple that I'm missing, including the Kurenai lamppost. I'm someone who does treasure maps all the time, not recently because I'm waiting for world visiting when I'm going to be revisiting that content. I'm someone who goes and does my Crafter Beast Stripe dailies every day. I'm someone who goes to the Gold Saucer and does gates in the mini crackpot and stuff. I'm someone who goes off and tries to solo to grab random pieces of loot that maybe I didn't have already, like, the original Prime Point. I'm someone who isn't, I look at rating and I go, okay, I got that done for the week. What else can I do? And so Blue Mage is on that list of things. Now the weekly challenges are on there, and I would love to have more achievements and more weekly challenge type options inside of the Mass Carnival itself. And I've realized that ultimately in Blue Mage, the ultimate problem is I just want more of it. I consume a lot of content and I consume it very fast. So that's kind of a common thing with me, and it's not the game's fault. It's kind of, I'll throw 40, 50 hours at something in a week if I'm really into it. And that's like a price of a AAA game. So I can't really complain about that in this experience and in this context when I'm the one doing that. That's 4 months worth of content right there. $60 is 4 months sub. And I get that in 4 or 5 days because I go full crack addict on it. That's my own fault. I can't complain about that when by the time that $60 would have been cost, I'm basically there. I'm good. I'm good to go in 3.5 months. Pretty much almost every time. So I know I took a bit of a tangent there, but I don't think it needs to remain limited. I fully expect it will. I don't think they ever have the intention of reworking the system from the ground up to make it work, which would basically mean everyone needing to relearn it from scratch. So that's the last question from the forums, and thank you for that last question. Twitch chat, if you guys have some questions, if I like them, I'll include them in the video, so let's see what you got. All right, continuing along the vein of Blue Mage, this isn't so much a question as much as it is something that I want to kind of comment on. I was talking to some people, and I know it won't be for years if it happens at all. While they would have preferred for Blue to be able to raid, I expect it'll never be able to. I was hoping that when they add things like maybe Beastmaster or Puppet Master, if they're limited jobs, that maybe they do a combo carnival where all the limited jobs could team up. And I think that that kind of is almost like, it's not trying to create a classic experience. It's more like trying to create a whole new subset of content, which is something we've wanted for ages. I don't know. I'm someone who doesn't mind revisiting old content. One of the most common complaints in Final Fantasy XIV is, oh, they release content and then it's meaningless 3.5 months later or 7 months later or whatever. And I'm like, it's not meaningless. It's just not how you're getting your gear anymore. They always try to incorporate reasons for you to revisit those things, whether it's mounts, minions, achievements, roulettes, any of that stuff. And to me, Blue Mage kind of reminds me of the A Realm Reborn Relic quest, how I remember going back and spamming all these dungeons, and every day I'd log into the game and be like, hey, let's do these roulettes for our relic, or maybe let's do some specific dungeons for our relic. And they were dungeons that were old and by all means shouldn't have been important to me, but they were again, suddenly. And I kind of like that about Blue Mage. So if they do this whole kind of combo carnival limited job, I wouldn't even just limit it to that. I would love to do other things like the old primals, to learn old skills, to find new pets, like all sorts of things like that. I totally love that idea and that concept. And it's just a matter of doing it well. Blue Mage right now was done well enough for me to be okay with the implementation. I need to wait to see about Beastmaster, Puppet Master, if we even get another limited job, because we don't know what the actual data is that they have regarding the success of the job. Not just how many people are playing it, but the general consensus on the result. And we'll have to wait and see that for some point. But I could totally see them doing like a combo carnival with the various limited jobs if we get to the point where we have multiples in the future. I think I'll make this the last Blue Mage one for a while, because I do see some other ones. I guess it's not really Blue Mage, but it's limited job focused. Do you foresee more limited jobs in the future? I think Blue Mage is going to be considered enough of a success, as much of a success as most other content in the game is, in that a bunch of people played it, a good portion of them liked it, and even for the people who didn't, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of like how, you know, a lot of people say the Gold Saucer is a waste of time, but yet they still release new stuff for that. And to the point where Gold Saucer has gotten to be like actually really good. Despite Lords of Verminion, despite Chocobo races falling off, they've managed to make the Gold Saucer incredibly valuable to the gameplay experience. And that's what I think they could do with limited jobs as well. It's a different experience in the game that's still familiar with the game. And it breaks the rules just enough to kind of fit in the mold of the game, but not really kind of interact with the rest of it. So I actually think there will be more limited jobs. My current prediction is 5.1 for level 60, 5.3 for level 70 on Blue Mage, then 5.5 Beastmaster starting at level 1 with a cap of 60. That's my current prediction. And then Beastmaster would go 70, 80, and Blue Mage would go to 80 as well, and 6.1. That's way in the future, but I think that's what the plan is going to be. Because one thing that people actually like doing in MMOs is leveling. I know it's really weird, like, to like it after doing it so many times, but some people just make a shit ton of characters and level jobs on all of them. They go, yeah, I got that to 70 again. Yeah, I got that. And I'm just like, you're out of your mind. I can't believe you like doing this much leveling. But they're adding that experience for more people more often with a different rule set and different objectives, different, you know, learning, collecting, stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's going to be deemed a success, and they are absolutely going to do Beastmaster and Puppet Master like they suggested they might back at the first Fan Fest before Shadowbringers. Next question from the Twitch chat, and this is one I've kind of gotten before, but with some relevant content coming up, I feel like I want to bring it up again. Do you think Final Fantasy XIV will oversee 16 or 24-man raids that are Savage difficulty or even Ultimate? I think we're about to get the testing ground for that. So coming up in Hydatos in Eureka is what is being deemed a public dungeon, where players with certain key items can band together and enter for a very, very high level of challenge. And it hasn't been said exactly how many people can enter. We know that there is a limited number of people who can enter at a given time. And I'd like to assume that's 24 people. And if the challenge is really to the degree that they're saying it is, then that sounds like the testing grounds for something like that. You know, is there enough interest? Is there enough cooperation to create content like that? Or can we only do it in these little subsets of the game in exploration style content where we go about breaking the rules with stuff like the Logos actions and whatnot? And all the same, even with that, it could still be a good deal of fun. I'm very much paying close attention to how Hydatos turns out. And I do plan on doing that public dungeon or public raid at this point. I might as well start calling it. And seeing how it actually turns out, because it could mean something for the future of Final Fantasy XIV. All right, so we actually had some good questions from the Twitch chat this week. We had some other discussions outside of the video, so once you don't know what they are unless you were there. So if you ever want to watch Mondays with Mr. Happy be recorded live on a Sunday, just because we're liars here in Mr. Happy Gaming. You know we are. I say we, I'm the only one here. You can watch it live usually on Sundays around 1 p.m. Pacific. Some weeks I don't do it. Depends on kind of what's on my plate. If there's anything I have to kind of prepare for, any important life stuff I have to do kind of close to, end time for the stream, which is normally 2 o'clock. But you can always come by on the Twitch stream and ask questions live or watch me answer the questions live or whatever it is you want to do. Thank you again to all of our Patreon sponsors for supporting as per usual. I'm not going to name you again, but I'll thank you again. And if you have a question for next week, while we still have these forums, go to the Dream Network forums in the description and go to that little section and ask your questions. I think next week might be the last week we actually get to use these. I think the website goes offline on like the 31st. And like I said, there are people who have contacted me saying they'd like to help me with developing a new website. I need someone else to do the development for it or to do the actual setup for it because I don't have the time to do it. And make it something that I can function with relatively easily. But obviously there's stuff like Squarespace and stuff as well. So either way, I'll be looking into an alternative, basically. But anyway, thank you for watching. Twitch chat, I'm going to hang out for a few more minutes, so don't go anywhere. But on the YouTube side of things, I will see you all next week, where we will be one day prior to Kingdom Hearts 3. Ready to get Norded. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Until then, take care.